Be interesting, be helpful, or be quiet.
Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, and I'm going to take the blame for us not posting an episode last week. It may or may not have been because I was vacationing in Europe. I won't say whether that's true or not, but you can go look at my European vacation photos on Instagram and see for yourself. Anyway, going forward, we're going to have a new episode every single week with an awesome guest, an awesome entrepreneur or innovator that's doing amazing things out there in the world. This week, we have Gina Schreck. She is just an absolute all-star. She's an amazing global speaker. She's an entrepreneur, author of several books. She has her own podcast, and her philosophy on bucket list items is something that's just really, really neat to see in the world in this day and age. That's all for this little intro. Let's get into the actual show. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, so we have an incredible guest this week on the Wild Business Growth Podcast. I can't really put into words how excited I am to have Gina Schreck on the show, which might be a problem because you need our words. But anyway, Gina, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for coming on the Wild.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited.
Thank you. So am I. And I know all of our listeners are as well. Gina, I'll say a little bit about you, and then I'll tee it off to you to give sort of your background and a little bit of where you came from.
Great.
So Gina Schreck, not sponsored by the franchise Schreck, by the way. Gina Schreck is an amazing president of SocialKNX. She's a multi-time entrepreneur. She's a world-renowned speaker, traveled the world, spoke at too many conferences to count. And I think I'm going to read her Twitter bio because that's the first thing I ever saw about you, Gina. And
I love it.
CEO of SocialKNX, a content marketing and social media management agency. Star emoji. I love big adventures. Sing loud in my car. She loves singing in her car. And she hates cilantro. So no cilantro allowed on this podcast. Ugh. She's also easily distracted by shiny objects. So, Gina, I just hope there's no shiny objects around.
I am facing a window, so there could be a squirrel at any moment.
Oh, no. Okay. But I think a couple other tidbits that I learned that I thought were really, really cool about you. One was, I don't know what year it was, but you're on the cover of a magazine in a straitjacket, which is pretty cool.
And it was really comfortable. So that could say something about me.
There you go. All right. Gina will see you in prison. And she's also a mentioned speaker. She's also a coach at DIY Social, but we could go on and on and on. But Gina, I feel like you should introduce yourself. And would you mind going a little bit about kind of how you started, where you came from, and a little bit about your career and what's the biggest thing you're working on today?
Absolutely. Yeah. I took the big leap and started my business in 1995. So 24 years ago. And so there's a lot, that happens, and a lot of squiggling and pivoting in 24 years. So started out in working with organizations, training. So came from that training background and worked with companies in their sales and marketing teams, and kind of got niched in the cable industry first. I think because we lived in Denver and that cable industry was really big here, those were some of our first clients. And so we went around the country training all of their sales and marketing teams. And it was funny because it was all about how to sell against satellite dish, because that was brand new. That tells you how old and how long I've been doing this. But went from training, and I've gotten involved in speaking at a lot of conferences, and mainly because if you're a female and you can speak and you are technologically savvy, it's kind of this perfect storm of, wow, you're one of a kind. And so I was asked to speak at a lot of conferences and got into speaking, realized, wow, I could speak for an hour and make more than I could doing training all day. And so greed took me that way. And then social media came on the scene, and I immediately, again, I love shiny objects. So anything new, I tended to jump in and create accounts and check them out and see what it was about. And then I realized, wow, we should be using this as a marketing tool. So started sharing that in speaking, and people would come up and say, wow, this is great, but can you just do it for us? So 10 years ago, we pivoted again and revamped our whole business model to take on clients where we managed all of their digital media. So, we blog for them, we do their email marketing, we do their social media management. And so, yeah, it's just been an interesting journey that, you always have to just look at where's your business going? And I'm excited that it's not stagnant because I don't like doing the same thing for very long, but we have a team of 18 people and it's fun, but it's crazy because it's 24/7 and there's never a day off in social media. So at times it's exhausting. But it's really fun. And I still speak at conferences, just not as much because there's a lot going on here that I need to always be kind of in my seat.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. So it's fun.
That's amazing. And it's cool how many different things you've done.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing I always tell people is, be comfortable being uncomfortable, because as an entrepreneur, I think realizing that when you're just comfortable and you stay doing the same thing for too long, you're probably being left behind because things change so rapidly. And so you just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and always changing and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm in over my head again. And I bit off more than I can chew with this one. But that's such an exciting place to be because it really causes you to grow. And that's been fun. And the funny thing behind the straitjacket was people would always say, she's crazy for technology and she loves technology. And so I did a photo shoot first with a straitjacket for my headshots. And then I did the Speaker Magazine, the National Speakers Association, put me on the cover, and they wanted to use that photo. And so that was the cover. It was She's Crazy for Technology. And they did a whole piece on, at that time, what I was doing in the tech world and with other speakers. And so it was really funny.
Yeah, and this is the first straitjacket reference in the history of the Wild Business.
Exactly.
So you're breaking history. We're setting records here.
Right here.
I'm sure you're wearing it right now as well.
Exactly. That's why I said I'm very comfortable in it now.
Comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's speak about speaking for a little bit, because why not?
Yeah. Well, and it's such a great marketing tool. I always tell entrepreneurs, you should be speaking, you should be writing. Every author should be a speaker, every speaker should be an author, but I think every entrepreneur should do both because it's a great marketing tool. You're out in front of people as a thought leader, and you should take your expertise. And, the old motto in the speaker world is you speak for free until you can speak for fee. And so I was fortunate that I never had to speak for free to start out because I came from the training side. So, I've never been uncomfortable speaking in front of a room. And so when people would ask me to speak for an hour, I was like, shoot, an hour, that's easy. I've been doing 8-hour days. But I really think it's a great tool that everyone should put in their back pocket and get out in front of your industry in ways that you can speak and be seen as that thought leader.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
I'm curious, are there any of your speaking gigs or conferences over the years that come top of mind as some of your favorites?
Oh gosh. Immediately I thought of one I just thought I would die.
Really?
Yeah. I think some of my favorites are always when they are to the perfect audience, which is entrepreneurs. I think when it's a female audience, again, I have more that I can relate because, again, mm-hmm. So much of my life I bring to my stories. And I think we should always be mining our life for stories. And when things happen, I have a habit of writing them down. I have a story starter journal that I just jot down the experience I just had or something that was just going on that maybe later will become a great story to incorporate into whether it's a blog or whether it's into a keynote. So a lot of my stories had to do with I have 4 kids. And so, I have a ton of stories. And I've written a few books. And one of them was just strictly the stories about my family that I never wanted to really get out there. I just thought this would be a great legacy piece to leave behind with all the stories of lessons from my kids. And when I would keynote, people would want to buy those. They're like, do you have those? Do you have this in a book? I love that story you told about the hot air balloon. And I thought, wow, I should actually bring some of these, and they would sell like crazy. So I think it's kind of funny when you look at that. But the keynoting that I've done, one in particular stands out, and it was an association of cement. It was the cement, something association, a huge. I was surprised how big of an association had to do with cement, but it was huge. And, probably 2,000 people in this keynote. And They were all over 50 and 99% of them men. So everything about my perfect audience, flip it upside down. And that's who I was speaking to. And they wanted me to talk about digital marketing. And I just thought, here is an audience who doesn't even, there were people in the room who didn't have a smartphone. They still had the little clamshell phones.
Right.
And
what's a smartphone anyway?
Yeah, exactly. So those to me are the disasters when you say yes to things that you just shouldn't. And, I should have, when I heard, and I did hear ahead of time who the audience was and what their demographics were, I should have said, I'm not the right person, but I didn't. I said, sure. And yeah, that's another lesson, even in business, there are things that we know there are red flags going off that we should say no to, but because we think, the money's good, or I'm sure we can make this work. And then it just turns out we should have followed our gut. And yeah, to me, the fun ones are when people I love using humor, and I have so many funny stories that have happened to me that I share those stories. And so to me, the perfect audience is one that you're just like on a roll and you just know I'm going to say this and then I'll pause because I know this is going to get the laugh. And those are just you're on a high at the end. You're like, and you connect with everybody and it's great.
Right. And I think after this podcast, we'll probably be sponsored by the Association of Cement. So
Exactly. Well, they're always chasing me, trying to get me to have them sponsor all my work, of course.
Yeah, well, it was obviously a great speech.
Yeah.
And I know you, as you mentioned you incorporate a lot of humor and personal stories. How often do you switch up your speech versus going with the same stories over the years?
It's always different because fortunately, in this industry, there's always something new. And I'm not in an industry that ever stays the same. So, to me, every time you get up to speak, it really should be. I always say I hate bullet points. I hate slides with bullet points. Get up and speak from your heart and get up and really deliver something that's of value to that audience. And knowing who that audience is ahead of time, it always changes what you're going to say. Well, here's how I equate it. Every story that I have is a bead. And as I go through my life, I have a box of beads, and it's a huge box of beads. Now, over time, I polish the beads by taking them out, and maybe I'll write them up and I'll edit and I'll edit and I'll edit and I'll say, doing a word count, if you have a story that's 150 words, that's 1 minute. If you have a story that's 300 words, that's a 2-minute story. So I know I speak about 150 words per minute. And knowing that, when I'm speaking, I can pull out a bead that I know right here is going to be the perfect story. But over the years, what I've discovered is I can reach in my box extemporaneously because the situation, somebody says something in the audience or asks a question, and I know exactly what bead to pull out. So I may use a story that happened, 5 years ago, but at this moment, I'm using it because of the way things are going versus the next time I do a keynote, I may never bring that story up again. So to me, that's the importance of collecting our stories. When we have things that happen, I'm always thinking of, wow, this would be a great example to share in customer service, or this would be a great example to share in a, email marketing story, or, so you just have these beads. And I think when we collect them and have them written down in places, I have a little journal. I said that my story starter journal, but now I have on my computer just stories, and then sometimes I go, wow, this would be great in a book. So yeah, I think stories are important because in marketing, it's all about connecting with stories, and people not only do they love stories, they love to share stories. So to me, the best story that you hear is not only one that you remember, but it's one that's retold. So when I run into someone and they go, oh my gosh, 2 years ago, I was in an audience and you told that story about your daughter with the, whatever it was, and they'll remember the story because they've retold that story. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful story. And that's a message because not only are they remembering the story, but they remember the points that were told. So I think in our marketing messages, if we can incorporate stories, people just connect with them. And I just think data and everything else is boring. And so I'm always looking for ways to do that. And then when they're funny, it's just even better.
Right.
It's even better.
Yeah. No, there can never be too much humor in my opinion.
I agree.
Storytelling is super, super important. And I think that's the key with it that you mentioned right there is that a good story and a powerful story is so memorable. There's really nothing
Yeah.
like it.
And as an
And
entrepreneur, we use it with our team. I'm always sharing stories of, things that have happened with customers in the past and how the lessons we've learned and the failures and the successes. You have to tell those in the form of a story so that people on your team remember them. And then when you're looking outward to the customers you serve, then it becomes the stories that are your case studies and ways that you tell those stories, though, and the stories of your team and how did our team come together? And what's the story of our company? And what's the story of why I do what I do? And those little snippets of stories, sometimes when we think of them, we're like, oh, that's not that interesting because it's still rough. So put that bead in your box and then start editing it and start crafting that story so that it becomes something that is usable in different parts of our business.
I love that analogy, the beads.
It helps me. Yeah, I love that.
And I think some of your best beads, some of my favorite beads of yours are on social media, particularly Twitter. I think I got you with a little segue here. So social media, I know you're an early adopter on Twitter and you obviously have a huge influence there and are very active, have a huge network. Can you speak a little bit about what it was like being an early adopter and sort of building that Twitter community and also how you've seen it change over the years?
Well, and it's funny because, Twitter, when I first got on, people would just think you're just crazy. You're doing that tweet thing. And I always said, I've been involved in things like 3D immersive technology where you're logging in as an avatar and on Twitter. And, I'm the girl that when I would walk in down the hall in conferences, they would whisper and say, there's that weird girl that's involved in all those weird things like Twitter and Second Life and Protosphere. And, so I was that person. But Twitter, to me, the early days of Twitter, I got on there to find and connect with other brilliant people who were doing this 3D immersive technology. We had a contract with IBM. We did these trainings in this tool called Second Life, which is, I always say it's like World of Warcraft so people will get it. Like it's a virtual world. You log in like a video game. You're an avatar. Now, I'm a woman over 50, so I never have played video games. So to me, when I logged in the first time, I thought, this is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. This is so bizarre. How are companies, this is too weird for a company to be using it. So to me, what's great is on Twitter, I just did some searches to find people that were using this tool. And all of a sudden, I found these people that were so smart and using it in ways that I had never imagined. And so to me, Twitter became this way to just connect. And that was how I saw it first. I didn't see it as, oh, we can now pump out all the stuff about us and use it as a marketing tool. It was just a way to connect with people and build friendships. And I literally built friendships with people that then we would, in this weird way, log into a virtual environment. And then we would see each other as an avatar, but you're using a headset. So it's like Skype or some, a voice over internet. So you have a headset on, you're talking to the person and your gestures move while you're talking. So your brain is thinking, I'm getting to know this person further. Very strange. But so Twitter led me to then meet people in virtual spaces, which then led me to speak at conferences and meet them in person. So Twitter was that first relationship tool that I saw. And in the early days, that's really what people were on there for, is to build relationships. And so we got to know each other and we chatted really personal. And I, again, going to the humor, I kind of have a snarkier side. So then I started tweeting at conferences and getting in trouble because I would be, oh my gosh, this person has a 7-point font on their slides. And of course, and I would make little comments on Twitter. And so early days, Twitter was just fun, and it was connecting and building friendships. And then we really started seeing that it's a way to share your expertise, to get to know people. And I always say on social media, the problem people have is they forget that it's social. They just see it as media. So they broadcast without it being social. So on Twitter, what I love is you really can get to know people through small little short 140, now 280, which is awesome, exchanges. And I just love it. To me, my favorite time on Twitter is at night when people are social. And there was a tool way back when called Get Glue. And Get Glue was where you would log on to Twitter and you would check in with whatever show you were watching. So if you were watching whatever the reality shows, America's Got Talent or something, you were chatting with other people about that. And so, there were so many fun ways that it was being used. And I just saw it as a great way to then brand yourself. So many people say they're an expert, but who else thinks you're an expert? Unless you're putting out content that people say, wow, this person's really got great content and expertise in this area, then only you think you're an expert. So Twitter to me was a tool early on to really brand yourself with your expertise.
Oh yeah. And I know it's probably more challenging these days with it being so popular and sort of all the content clutter out there, but it was super powerful at the start, especially. And I'm going to have to go back and look at your old tweets because the 7-point font and tweets like that is cracking me up. So I want to see what else.
I as a matter of fact, I even had I had a Twitter account for my dog, Bob, and it's still out there, Bob A. Barker.
Bob Barker.
Bob Barker. And Bob A. Barker he still has a Twitter account. You could kind of see his tweets. I had a Twitter account called Snark in the Dark. And I started using that when I was at conferences so that people wouldn't know it was just me being mean. And then I always had the Gina Schreck account. And then I also have SocialKNX account, which now someone on our team manages that one. But what I see that has changed is automation has come into play.
Right.
And when automation came in, then people disappeared from Twitter and they let automation pump out content. So they lost the social. And so whenever people say, I just don't feel like I get that much from Twitter, I tell them you need to come back to it, be present again, even if it's a couple times during the day, be present and listen to what other people are tweeting about and comment on what they're saying and reply to people instead of just broadcasting. So I think what's changed is automation has made it so easy for us to just schedule all of our content and disappear. And that's true on any social platform. And when you disappear, your engagement, of course, is going to disappear because you're no longer present. And your content might be great, but it's still not as brilliant as a conversation. And I think that's where we need to go back to more time being present and really engaging with a person instead of just content.
Yes, I love that point. You hit on one of the biggest pet peeves of mine, which is, do as much automation as you need or want to use in your marketing strategies, but make sure to have that social and genuine aspect. I mean, there's so many times that I've looked at people's tweets and replies tab and there's nothing there.
There's nothing. Yeah. That's a great clue. Go to anyone's Twitter account and you'll see their tweets. And then the second tab is mentions and replies. Look at that tab because if there's nothing, that tells you they're not there.
Right. Yeah. It's talking to a robot or a brick wall, however you want to describe it. But
yeah,
I know, just from our interactions with the Hippo and you, I mean, I was introduced to you through Twitter, and I know we kind of engaged back and forth a bunch of times on just fun little tweets back and forth. And it makes such a good impression when you actually take the time to go and message and engage with someone.
Yeah. And I'm trying now. I haven't gotten great at this yet, but I'm trying to do more video replies to people and actually a video saying, "Hey Max, I just wanted to let you know I love that tweet that you just posted about such and such," because then the person's blown away. Like, wait a minute, like is that really you? And I think those type of things, the new tools that are introduced, jump on and use them and find ways to spend some time engaging with people. And I love video. So to me, I think the more we can incorporate live video or video responses, it brings that human element back. And people usually are so shocked that even on LinkedIn, when somebody connects on LinkedIn, how many people reply with a real message back to you and say, it's great to connect and I look forward to learning more about you. Or most people don't ever get a reply to somebody accepting their connection on LinkedIn. So when you do, then people are blown away and they're like, wait, you really replied, so I find little things like that, the connecting, start a relationship off on a good step, not on an auto message that says, I know this might sound spammy. It's an auto message. Well, then why are you doing it?
Right.
That's my thought on those. Stop doing it then.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that video replies, I think that's a great tactic. I think, are you familiar with Madeline Sklar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've interacted with her a lot on the business account, and I
Right.
love all her tips
Right.
and tricks about Twitter and all that. But to your point about the surprise and the impact of that,
Oh, it's so good.
I think maybe the first time we tweeted at her, maybe first or second time, she responded with the video reply and called
Yeah.
out Hippo Direct. She also had her dog is named Max, which of course
Oh, I love it.
was, I happen to love that name.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Exactly.
but
I'm
it
sure
makes
you get that a lot. Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. And it actually, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be the most popular dog name. So,
My daughter's name is Bailey, and that's now
oh yeah,
probably the most popular dog name.
right. She
Yeah.
overtook Max from the
Yeah.
throne.
She reminds us of that all the time. Why did you name me a dog name? That's funny. But yeah, Madeline Sklar, I mean, her whole thing is all about Twitter smarter. And I think that's one of the smartest things you can do is reply directly. Now I use a lot of images. So sometimes I'll put a fun GIF or an image, but I need to do the whole thing of doing more video. And then that requires, I got to get ready in the morning.
Right. Yeah. And who wants to get ready? On that?
Who wants to be video ready every day? But yeah, I think we need to do that.
Hi, this is Greg Brandstetter, founder of Hippo Direct. Has all this wild growth talk made you hungry for some new customers? Well, here's your recipe for success. Hippo Direct can help you acquire new clients using proven methods such as postal mailings, email marketing, and targeted ads on Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We can even create a customized leads and prospecting database for you. So check out hippodirect.com and contact us today.
So videos take a lot of creativity, and that's going to take us to our next segment here. So one of the things that we cover, hit on creatively in this Wild Business Growth podcast is unleashing creativity.
Yeah.
So first question here, how does creativity play into your everyday life, whether it be personal or professionally?
Oh, I see. To me, I have a huge creative side that I love. I love painting. I love drawing. And I think sometimes I mentioned, we get stuck in that sameness in our jobs, that we do the same thing for so long. And it's because we're not really, I think innovation and creativity should be an everyday thing. And I think we have to constantly be reinventing ourselves. And I always say, if we don't cannibalize ourselves every day and evolve into something new, someone else will cannibalize us because they want the business that we have. And so you have to constantly be recreating yourself. Now, to do that, you have to put yourself in situations that are different and new. And so I love trying different things. And last year, one of my clients actually said, I'm going to this 4-day painting retreat in Mineral Point, Wisconsin, which I was like, I don't even know where that is. And she said, I'd love for you to come with me. And I thought, 4 days painting? Like, that seems crazy. But I said, okay, let's do it. It was the coolest. It was all mixed media art. It was something totally different for me. And it unleashed this whole new passion that I have. I turned my daughter's room into a big art studio, and I go in there as often as I can to just sometimes turn off the digital side of my brain and just create. And all of a sudden I'll think of something. I was like, oh, this would be a great topic for a blog post. And, painting kind of creates some different, the different synapses are firing and different ideas are born. I also love going out and hiking. And my husband doesn't like this, but I love hiking by myself. In Colorado, we have 55 mountains here that are 14,000 feet high, which is, some of the tallest peaks. As a matter of fact, the tallest peak in the continental U.S. is Mount Elbert. And it's like 14,800. And
Not to brag.
Not to brag, but I have been on that mountain. I've climbed that one. But I think hiking and climbing by yourself, that alone time, same thing when you go for a walk. If you can get away somewhere alone, it allows your brain to just create new ideas. And even if you're not thinking of business, you start making connections to business. And so I think it's critical in business that you have to put yourself in positions to do something different so that those creative neurons will fire, whether that's taking a dance class, whether that's taking a language class, a new language or an instrument. it opens up new pathways that tie back to business. And I think it's just really important for us to do that. I'm going skydiving on Monday, which I've been skydiving before, but we're going again with a group of women. And one of the reasons was I felt like I'm just kind of, I needed a jump.
Of course.
Yeah. And I thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's get a bunch of women together and let's go skydiving. And so we have 9 women. We're all going skydiving on Monday. And so things like that, I think, put you in a position where you can then call back and say, oh, remember when I did that and it was scary or it was hard, and but I did it and it was really fun. I think we have to make ourselves do those things.
Yeah. And is that part of your Monday morning routine? I mean, do you brush your teeth? You get up, brush your teeth, and go skydiving?
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't everybody do that? I thought I was not the only one.
I think so. I don't know. That may be a stretch. That may be a jump there.
Yeah.
But
my bucket list is almost empty, so I have to keep stretching and finding new things to put on there.
Right. Yeah, totally. I was thinking, I mean, a lot of those things are part of the bucket list, but
yeah,
you're doing so many different things in so many different areas. It's a lot of fun. I want to go back to the point real quick on alone time versus time surrounded by people, which I think is super important. I think, whether you call yourself an introvert or an extrovert, I think most people these days kind of fall into the omnivert category where you need some time to be really introspective and some alone time, and you need some time to be social and skydiving with your friends.
Exactly.
So do you, how often do you go and spend that time alone? How often do you make sure to be by yourself?
It's interesting because I'm an extreme extrovert. When you take any of those tests, I'm on the extreme side, probably scary extreme, which again goes back to the straitjacket. But I do think that the older I've gotten, the more I crave being alone, which I always say, I wonder if social media has made me less social.
Right. Yep.
I love quiet. Like, to me, when I go and paint, what drives me nuts is people, my family will come up and want to sit and chat with me while I'm painting. And I'm like, no, this is like I need quiet time. I just need time to have my brain wander. I would say at least 2 or 3 times a week, I will go on a walk alone. And at least, I try to just plan activities that are solo activities, whether it's, just going, we live in the foothills area, so I can just take off out my backyard and there's little hiking trails and things. And there is some danger to that. I have started carrying pepper spray because there's mountain lions and bears and things like that. But
oh my.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh my. But to me, if we don't put ourselves in those places where we have quiet time, we start feeling burnout really easily. And I think as entrepreneurs, we always feel like we have to be doing, going. And then when we are extroverted, we're always around people, you start frying out and burning out and you're exhausted. And, we did a trip, actually it was 5 years ago. That's weird. 5 years ago yesterday, it was August 7th. We summited Kilimanjaro in Africa. And,
oh, wow.
and that whole week, it was 10 days. You had no technology. I had no digital media. And that was the first time that I had unplugged to the point. No, there was another time I went on a writer's retreat in the Redwood area in California. And there was no cell service. There was nothing. But when you put yourself in those situations, it's really interesting because I was going through withdrawals. Like, oh my gosh. So I brought my iPad with me on Kilimanjaro to blog every night, not to broadcast it. I was just writing my experiences of the day so I wouldn't forget them. So that was it was still quiet time. It was still my focus time, but it was, I used an iPad, which was kind of funny that I even brought that. I should have brought a journal and pen, but I was kicking and screaming on that one. But I do think it's important for our sanity and so that we don't burn out, that we create and schedule that unplugged time.
Right. Yeah. The activities that you mentioned before, maybe they're bucket list items, but now that you mentioned Kilimanjaro and the Redwoods with an iPad, I think you're really checking off the bucket list a little early here.
I've gone scuba diving, skydiving. I've done all that. We're going to, in April of 2019, we are going to climb to base camp of Everest.
No way.
I won't attempt climbing Everest because I hate cold that much, but I will go to base camp. And so we're training right now for that. Yeah, my thing is, why do we, people collect bucket list items instead of actually living and doing them? And I was just in Napa Valley a month, I guess it was last month, meeting a sister that I had never met. So that's a weird story in itself. But through DNA testing, I discovered I have a whole side of my family that I never knew. Met my sister for the first time. And she said to me, she's lived in Napa Valley all her life. She said, I've always wanted to go on a hot air balloon. And I said, oh my gosh, you have hot air balloons everywhere in Napa Valley. Why have you never gone? She goes, I don't know. It's just one of those bucket list items. I whipped out my phone. I booked us a thing to go the very next morning. I said, we're going in a hot air balloon ride tomorrow morning. And I just thought it's funny that we put things on our list, and then what is it that makes us not do them? People want to start a business, but they go, oh, well, someday I will. Someday I will. Why? Why are we waiting? Just do it. And I'm a firm believer of just do it.
Yeah, and you're living proof. I mean,
yeah, it's like you just have to go and just try it. And there's a lot of things, even in my business now, I want to try that are totally different from, or even just slightly different, new things. I always say, jump in and do it. Try it. If it fails, you can decide, do I want to tweak it and try again? Or did I realize it was like, okay, that was just a really bad idea. And what did I learn from it? I just think we need to do more instead of think and plan more.
Yeah. You hear the horror stories about people when they're older and
I wish I would have done
retired that. And I wish I would have done that. Wish I would have done this. And it's like, well, you can do,
just do it.
Yeah. I do want to talk about regrets a little bit before we get to some more fun stuff to wrap up.
Sure.
So regrets, you're kind of the opposite of this because you're living the bucket list. You're doing all these things. You're skydiving Monday.
Yeah.
But is there anything still, even with all that, is there anything that comes to mind that you wish you would have done earlier, or maybe it's something you wish you would have embraced earlier?
Yeah. And it's funny that you said it because I don't have any big life regrets, but I have little regrets. Like, okay, I've been wanting to start. I always get people that come to our business. They come to our website. They come to me and on social media and they say, do you do any coaching? And I don't. I don't do one-on-one coaching. And for years I said, I just need to launch this DIY social thing that I have in my head. And it was one of those things I never made time for it because I was busy. In business, you stay busy and you can stay busy all the time. There's always more to do than you have time. But when you have something nagging at you going, you really should do this. You should launch this product, or you should launch this service, or you should start doing this. Even when they're little things, we put it off because we're too busy. And I kept thinking for years, I should launch this whole coaching piece for solopreneurs who can't afford to outsource it, all their marketing to us. And I waited a long time before I took action on it. And to me, I regret that because I look at it and say, how many people could we have helped? So I think even little things, if it's important, make the time. Make the time. We say we don't have time. You'll never have time. And if you're waiting until you have time, that'll never happen. So I regret little things like that. Like I should have said yes to this one thing that we didn't do. And the coaching one is one that I look back and go, I wish I would have started this 10 years ago, or at least 5 years ago. And I waited a long time because it just didn't seem that important. And to be honest, a lot of it was, I don't think it's going to make that much money, which was a really bad reason not to do something, because I've learned a lot and met a lot of people that have then gone on and their businesses have grown and become great. So, doing things for the right motive too is important. And I think I got to that point of going, I just need to do this as a way to help those solopreneurs who are frustrated by all the crazy social media. Is so complicated when you're just starting out. And yet, you realize, oh, it's really not that hard if somebody just walks me through it. So yeah, I would say that's one of the regrets. I don't have any big life regrets, thankfully.
Yeah, that's living life to the fullest. And is that the coaching? That's DIY social, right?
DIY social. Yeah. And we've got, from a video program of how do I start my Facebook page? Like I'm just brand new to this and late to the game. What do I do? To a full blown, how do you make the decision to follow your passion when you don't even know what you're passionate about? Video courses, and then coaching. We do live coaching sessions and things on that. And yeah, that's been really fun.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely link out to that in the show notes. So now let's go to a fun little segment called the Wild Business Shoutout of the Week.
The Wild Business Shoutout of the Week.
So the Wild Business Shoutout of the Week. So this is something that we do frequently on the Wild Business Growth podcast. And this is where we talk about a recent creative marketing campaign that caught our attention and then chat about it a little bit.
Oh, fun.
So we were chatting earlier about an email you recently received that was for deodorant, correct?
Right. Of all things.
Right. So can you speak a little bit about, tell us a little bit about the email and why it was so impactful for you and sort of who sent it?
Yeah. And it's funny because, when you're in marketing, I mean, you and I know when you see something that's brilliant marketing, you're like, oh my gosh, this was so good. And then I'm always looking at it from a holistic approach of, are they carrying that through? Is that their brand? Is that their personality? Do you see that at every touch point within that organization? So there was an email that I got, that I first came across. It just said there's this new deodorant out, and deodorant, how boring is that? But it was all natural deodorant. It's called Native Deodorant. And I just wanted to try it. And so I ordered online, just ordered 1 stick of this deodorant. And the email response that I got was hysterical. So I actually pulled it up so I could read it to you, because it says, Gina, the subject line, Gina, your package has shipped. And then it says, Gina, your bar of Native deodorant was gently pulled by our team of experts and placed on a gold trim pillow stuffed with the finest fibers known to man. Then a team of 6 inspectors examined your deodorant under a magnifying glass, ensuring it was in perfect condition. Once the inspection was complete, our veteran polisher, it goes on. It's a story of how my deodorant went from being pulled from the thing to into a box. And then it says, we hope that you had a wonderful time shopping with Native. In celebration, we've placed your name on our wall under the world's best customer and assigned a dedicated parking spot right up front. We've also hired a pilot to skywrite Gina Rocks above the Golden Gate Bridge. Thank you for supporting Native.
Wow.
It was, and even there was an email before that when I first placed the order that said that they're playing music and everyone's dancing, and as soon as they stop dancing, they'll start processing my order. It was like another long story of what's happening in their warehouse because I placed an order. And I just thought, now again, this must be their branding personality. Although I think I told you this, I was kind of disappointed when I got the deodorant because there was nothing fun about the packaging. There was no fun message in the packaging. There was nothing. The fun stopped from their email.
Right.
So to me, the first lesson is even email can be so spectacular that people not only want to talk about it, not only read it, but they share it. I have talked about this email since the day I got it, because it's an example of how brilliant you can be when you let your personality shine through your marketing messaging. And I think most of the time businesses think, well, I can't be that silly, and that we're B2B, and maybe we're a medical practice, maybe we're a dental practice, maybe we're an attorney, maybe we're serious here. Well, maybe serious doesn't have to mean complete. Maybe you can weave in a little bit of your personality and find ways to bring some fun or at least a little levity into your marketing message. Because this, even though this is a B2C product, I have seen other companies that do a really great job of telling their story. HubSpot, Hootsuite, they weave in, and they're B2B products and services, and yet they weave personality. They tell the stories of their employees and their team. So to me, this was a really fun one. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you so much for reading that, because you get the full picture of it.
Oh yeah, so fun.
Sure.
I need to drive up there and see if my parking space is still there.
Yeah, the parking space. The written in the sky. That would be.
Exactly.
We got to hold them to it.
It's so fun.
Probably they should have done that by now. Probably, but that's a really good example. To kind of the reverse side of that, something that I've seen recently. So I started using this year Harry's razors. They have which they're kind of the cool kind of anti Dollar Shave Club, like same sort of approach, but they've created a really, really cool brand. And I was impressed with it. They have really, really fun and cool messaging on their website and emails throughout the ordering process. But when they sent their package, you open it up, and once you take the razors out and the shaving cream or whatever else you order, they have they have their cute little woolly mammoth logo that's on the bottom that has some sort of high message. There's so many different little things like that. They have short, funny descriptions on them on the product. So I think really it's important to have that full 360, from the whole cycle should really incorporate the brand.
Right.
And we've seen it just how powerful even an email or the physical product can be.
I think people underestimate the power of messaging in our marketing. And a friend of mine, Tony Newman, she speaks on innovation and customer experience. And she always talks about the touch points. What are, you have to first identify what are all the touch points, and email is a huge touch point. Your email signature, your voicemail, the way people are greeted when somebody walks in the door, whatever it is, identify all those touch points and then look at, are they congruent? Do we have a feel in the way that we communicate at every single touch point so that it's consistent and congruent with our brand? And I just think that's so important because, again, I was disappointed because the emails were so amazing. So whoever does their email marketing is brilliant at Native Deodorant. Everything else, their website, the packaging that came, it was good, but it didn't match. So I think it's a good example of what happens when there's a disconnect.
Oh God, we're going to get someone promoted and someone fired.
I know. Yeah, exactly. The person at Native in their email department needs to be promoted. Definitely. They're awesome.
Awesome. Cool. All right. We have a strong endorsement there. Let's move on to something called the unusual, which is pretty unusual.
Okay.
So yeah, is your interest piqued? Yeah. So this is about phrases, quirks, and pet peeves. So let's actually start on the pet peeves front. What's your biggest pet peeve? And you can't say cilantro because you've already.
Well, and because I'm in the digital media space, I think one of my pet peeves, I hate with a passion people that send auto DMs as their first point of contact. I find that to be so spammy that it's an auto message that comes and says, when you connect with someone on Twitter and it'll just say something about, I don't know. Some of them just say, I have a free gift for you for connecting with me. It's like a gift to me should be chocolates or diamonds. Like a gift is not your ebook. And, things like that are my pet peeve. And I go off on tangents often on those. And my other one is the twit validation service that says, oh, thanks for connecting with me. Let me prove you're not a spammer or a robot by you going and jumping through all these hoops. And I'm thinking, okay, you're a lazy person. You should validate yourself that I'm not a robot. Why don't you try talking to me? So I disconnect from them. Those are my I'll get off the soapbox quickly because I could go on that one.
Get off the gold pillow with your deodorant.
Exactly. I'll take my deodorant and leave.
Those are good ones though. Those are both. I can totally relate to those too.
Yeah, it's like don't make your first impression be spammy.
Right. The auto DMs have become way too big of a thing on Twitter and Instagram now, especially.
Yeah, it's like stop the madness.
Right. Stop the madness. All right. Next one, quirks. Any quirks about anything that you do or do often that most people don't do, or maybe you've been called out on it before? I mean, I have a ton. I can just list them off, but if there's anything that comes to mind.
I mean, my sarcasm, I think, could get me in trouble, but
oh, can it?
Yeah, well, and I even did an email campaign recently, and I said our subject line was please unsubscribe, and I wanted people to unsubscribe if they didn't want to get our messages anymore. And so I put that as our subject line, and then I said, and I kind of used the Native Deodorant concept. I told a little story of, if you choose to unsubscribe, we will gather as a team and we will shed some tears, but then we will put on an Adele song and we will move on. And I put that in my email. And I actually got a guy who replied to me and he said, I found that to be like you crossed the line. That, yeah. And I replied back, my first response, I wanted to be snarky back, but I replied back and I just said, I appreciate your feedback. And I said, however, my brand, I think we've lost our edge. We used to be a lot more sarcastic and fun. Yeah. And I feel like we've lost that. And so your response to me makes me remember why, that I feel like it's important for our brand to stick to who we are. And we attract people who want that. And we'll, repel people who don't find that, interesting. I didn't tell him like you, but, it's like, repel people like you. I didn't offend, wasn't trying to offend him, but I was trying to say to him, I feel like as a brand, my quirkiness is what makes us different. And my sense of humor is what used to be really different out there. And I feel like we've gotten too oatmeal over the past couple of years, that we've gotten busy and we've gotten oatmeal and bland. And so I think quirkiness, find your quirkiness and magnify it, because I think that's what makes people attracted to you who are like that. And that's who we want. That's who you want to hang out with.
Right.
So it's probably not the way you were going with that question.
No.
Aside from
it was kind of
cilantro.
Yeah, in addition to cilantro. No, exactly. I mean, I'm super sarcastic as well. To your point, I really think that not everyone will understand the sarcasm or the quirkiness, but those that do, your community and your clients, they're probably way more loyal and way more engaged.
Totally. That's the exact point. I think we go bland because we want to attract the world instead of, and that's too hard. It's like, instead of, take your personality of your brand and magnify that, because you're going to attract the right people that are fun to work with and people who don't get you. I had one client of ours tell me that my voicemail was too silly, and that they were worried because their corporate office was going to be calling, because we were going to be working with all their franchises, and he was worried that it would be, and I thought about changing it. I was like, to get the business, should I change our voicemail? And then I was like, heck no. That's the people we want, is the people who think my voicemail is hilarious. And the people who don't like it, then you know what? I don't want to work with them. So yeah, be quirky and be proud of it.
Cool. And I want to hear your voicemail right after this.
Yeah, I always tell you, you'll have to call.
Don't pick up when I call next.
Well, even my contact page, if you go to our website, SocialKNX.com, and look at my contact page, it's different. I have a way to get a hold of us telepathically on our website. So it's things like that I need to go through and say, those are touch points. Am I being consistent everywhere? Or is our content gotten so bland that it's like oatmeal without brown sugar?
Right. Oh, that's so good. That's such a refreshing perspective.
Yeah.
So thank you. Last part of this segment, are there any phrases that just rub you the wrong way?
Well, I think when people say, and it's funny because I've used it, but like when they say go to the next level or level up in your business, or even the term hustle, and I use that, but I feel like those are starting to really rub me the wrong way, because we've taken it to a point where it no longer means what we first meant it to be. Right. To level up in your business, to me, really should be, are you creating yourself, and are you reinventing yourself in what you do, versus leveling up like a video game to that next level. I don't know. There's sometimes that kind of rubs me the wrong way when people say it. And then when people say you got to hustle and grind, you do have to outwork your competitor, and you have to outlearn your competitor, and you have to do things that they're not willing to do. But to hustle to the point now, when I hear people talk about it, they're talking about don't rest, don't take care of yourself, hustle until you die. And that rubs me the wrong way, because I think it makes some entrepreneurs feel like maybe I'm not really being successful in my business because I put my family first, or, so I think those are the two phrases that I kind of hear being taken the wrong way now, that are starting to rub me the wrong way. Yeah.
It's a bummer, because I know Gary Vee uses hustle like crazy, and I think when he started using it, I think it's a very powerful word, and you sort of instantly get what it means. But there's so many fake entrepreneurs these days that it's like,
yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key. But even Gary Vee, he's willing to sacrifice things that I'm not willing to do what he does. I'm not willing to do that, because I have other priorities and things in my life that I want to do.
Right.
And to me, it's not about making so much money that I can buy a professional football team, but for him, that's awesome.
You don't want to buy the Jets?
Yeah, I don't want to buy the Jets. I don't even want to buy the Broncos, and I live in Colorado. But I think it's the key of, you have to find what success and define what that means to you. But if you're doing it at the expense of your own health, you're not going to be around to bring that to fruition. So I think we have to take the word and say, what does that mean to me to hustle? Because to me, that means I have to outlearn and outwork my competitors. And sometimes that's really easy to do, because most people quit early and most people don't work as hard. But there are some times I go, I've got to put in a little more effort for a while,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to outwit, outplay, outlast.
Yeah. And even recently I realized I need to enjoy the process, the journey of outlearning and outworking. So I want to make sure that I'm enjoying learning all the things I'm learning. I want to put myself in situations to learn more, but I want to enjoy that. I don't want to do it just so I can make more money. I want to do it so I can really become a person that has more to give back and more to share with others, and I can develop our team. And so make sure you're doing it for and enjoying doing it for the right reason.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's wrap up here with a little rapid fire Q&A if you're up for it.
Oh, I'm up for it. It's always scary.
Okay. Yeah, it's horror themed. This is
I can do
thriller
scary things. I can do scary things.
right. Okay. So we'll save the horror movie questions for another time.
Oh no. Okay.
Okay. First question, because I know Denver has tons to do outdoors.
Yeah.
But you hate the cold, so I'm curious.
Oh.
Are you a skier or a snowboarder?
I am. I do enjoy skiing, but I'm a fair weather skier. I won't ski when it's like snowing, coming down, like blizzardy. Colorado, you can ski in the sun, and that's the ideal day to me.
Oh yeah.
I don't like cold.
What's your
I grew up in Hawaii. So I grew up in Hawaii, lived in
Wow.
California, then moved to Denver. So and now I own a house in Arizona that I can escape when it's too cold here. I don't like cold.
Wow. And it's definitely not cold in Arizona.
No.
What's your favorite Denver area ski resort?
I would say Vail. I like Vail. It's just kind of, I'm familiar with it. Enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a popular one. All right. Favorite type of music?
Oh, that's a hard one. Here's where I'll get laughed at. I love Yanni and Kitaro and like new agey, relaxing music. I always say, okay, I'm going to come out of the closet. I am a Yanni fan. But I like all kinds of music. I don't like hard rock and I don't like rap music. So
Gotcha.
and I'm not a big country fan. Everything else I kind of mix and play.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else you don't like?
Yeah. And cilantro. Did I mention I don't like cilantro?
I've been consuming cilantro this entire episode. So this is okay. Back to the rap. By the way, I've noticed over time with this podcast that I'm really bad at asking rapid fire questions because I always get into conversation.
I know.
So I'm going to try to stick to just the questions for the rest after this. All right. Favorite movie?
Princess Bride.
Same.
I love that.
Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Oh, that's so hard. I would have to say it because it comes up a lot. Israel. I did a hiking tour in Israel. That was amazing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
Oh, I don't know why, but the one that just popped in my head was, oh gosh, now it just left. It was talk, but I read just business books. So it's bad because I read so many business books. And I would say the one that pops in that recently, it's called The Power of Moments by Dan and Chip Heath, I think. Power of Moments. Powerful book. Awesome read.
Awesome. And last one, who's the person you would say is your biggest influence?
Ooh, influence. I know it's kind of corny, but I would probably say my husband, Kirk. He has always made me believe that I was better than I thought I was. And I think that is a powerful thing to be around people like that see potential in you that you don't even see. And so I always try to be like that and see the potential in people that they don't even see, to believe that they can do things that they don't think they can. I think has really, he's inspired me to do that more.
That's awesome. That's a great line. And so Kirk, we'll have you on the show next time so you can.
Shout out to the captain.
Shout out to the captain.
Live long and prosper.
Awesome. All right. That was rapid fire Q&A. How was that for you?
That was not so scary. That's good.
Okay. Okay. Next time will be way scarier.
Yeah. Good. Okay, good.
All right. I've been watching The Ring all morning.
Oh, see, I can't watch any scary movies. I cannot. I don't. Like, scary to me, when I went and saw Lord of the Rings, oh my gosh, that was scary.
Oh, gotcha. So you don't do any of that. You don't do Stranger Things or any of the.
No. Why? I don't want to put anything in my head that's going to come out later and scare me. No. Feed the brain.
Okay. Feed the brain.
Feed the brain. Only good things. Yeah.
next time we'll cover kids shows as well. They're a little less.
There's more my style. Awesome.
So, Gina, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the Wild Business Growth Podcast. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will enjoy all the different lessons and your bits of wisdoms and quirkiness throughout the episode, but so many different stories, and you've had an awesome career already and super excited to stay connected and sort of see what you're up to next. But
yeah, definitely.
Thanks again for coming on.
So much. And yeah, to your listeners, connect with me and share your stories with me. I would love it. And you can find me anywhere, just Gina Schreck. I always say you can Google me or find me. Luckily, Schreck is not that common of a last name. So Gina Schreck together is easy to find me. But this has been so much fun, a fun way to spend the day chatting with you, Max. So thank you.
Thank you. And it's Schreck, S-C-H, right? Not
S-H. It is S-C-H-R-E-C-K.
Right. And I love your podcast, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier.
Thank you. The Journey.
Yeah.
The Journey with Gina.
Really good stuff. Well, thank you so much. The last thing I want to end with, do you have either a quote or a thought you want to end with? So just to get people thinking as they wrap up the episode.
Oh, I would just have to say, be interesting, be helpful, or be quiet.
And with that, we will be quiet.
Just kidding. We're not going to be quiet for another 30 seconds or so. So that was Gina Schreck. Thank you guys so much for listening. That was a ton of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Please, if you're listening on iTunes, give us 5 stars or a rating. Anywhere else, we appreciate the love as well. If any comments or questions, you can reach out to us and all of our social media accounts at Hippo Direct. This has been the Wild Business Growth Podcast presented by Hippo Direct. I hope you're inspired to jump out of an airplane. Actually, please take precaution before you do that. But I hope you're inspired to take a huge jump in your business career. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, let your business run wild. Bring on the bongos!